greatly increase. And I imagine that's definitely the case with on-demand training, and or treatment. And I know that many times people have to go like 7 times before it really, you know, it'd be interesting to study that, quantifies that, sees how you're doing compared to peers who are doing the same thing.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's true. And I think that, because the program is free, and I should have mentioned that, I think that it's sort of the level of skin in the game that a person has to come into our place for free versus, having to pay tens of thousands of dollars for 30, 60 days to go off someplace. Chances are you're going to stay for that.
people throw out their great success rate, and yeah, it's $5,000, $50,000 to join. You've already selected the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you filtered it down to the 4 people. So I have some questions for you. So you mentioned, do you pick people up from detox centers after they've come in? Do they get, which detox centers are you partnered with, and which ones? Like Cherry Hill in the East Bay,
Yeah.
is there another detox center somewhere else?
Yes, but Cherry Hill is our strongest partner.
Got it.
In the South Bay, where we have most of our beds for this, they're very under-resourced, I would say, compared to what Cherry Hill offers. And there's also sort of, I guess, it varies from place to place in terms of the relationship that they have and how comfortable they feel sending people there. But yes, we really, I guess that is one other thing. We're reluctant to take people deep in addiction straight into our program without a detox process, because the physical needs that they have are again a little bit beyond our scope.
Got it. And do you have like employment preparation or like a workforce development effort built into the residency? Is that something they pursue on their own? Do you assign caseworkers, and do the caseworkers, are they part of the residency, or do they come in from the outside?
Yeah, no, we have caseworkers who are on site, paid by us to basically start with an assessment of where they are in their skills. Many of the folks that we serve have not completed their high school degrees, but then we have some who have specialized training in the trades and things like that, and just need to kind of get them back on their feet and re-engaged.
That's great. Are you partnered up with like Love Never Fails for the re-education piece? They're what they call the Biz Tech schools. Are you familiar with any of those in the Oakland area? Okay. How about where's your located? Sorry, I got 2 more questions, George, and then you can go next. Okay. I'll give you the mic here. So where's your house located in Oakland? What part of Oakland?
It's at 8th and Washington Street.
Okay.
Near the police station, which helps.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm going to actually stop by and visit. That would be great. And you said you have walk-in capabilities. Do you have like references coming from city caseworkers? Are people familiar with your organization?
Yeah, for sure. Kind of all the natural referral partners that you might think of we're fairly well aligned with. But a lot of it really does come from the criminal justice system.
Yeah, that was my question. Whether the 10 to 12 month stay, do you provide services for pretrial or reentry population, and whether or not that's connected with criminal justice system referrals?
Yeah, I didn't catch all of it. So the services related to their
pretrial.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, that there were residents that were waiting to go to court, and if they stayed in the program a certain period
I understand
of time.
now. Yeah, I think that with the resources that we have, we support our folks, I think, at the moments where they need us most. So they work with the parole officers for a certain amount of it. They're pretty mindful of their court dates, but there are occasions where they will want us to accompany them to those court dates. And that's a place where we definitely do everything we can and are typically there with them. And a lot of it will be the judge will turn to our caseworker and say, what's going on with this person? And of course, we're able to give them a glowing report.
Yeah, I was interested in the mental health issue. And you were saying, which of course, your organization are not expert in that. So, but interested in knowing where you've looked for partners, where you see partners being available in terms of professionals in that area or students in that area that are willing to come down and be of assistance?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. And it's an interesting one because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this in the last 6 months or so. We're in the process of launching a new 5-year strategic plan. And one of the pillars of that is to try and get better at the way we do this work. And one of the ways we're trying to get better is with mental health. And so by making that available to the folks who are staying with us, and there have been a variety of challenges that we've had. And the single biggest challenge is our folks don't have any money to pay anybody to do this work. And so, there are 2 ways that you can go about that. You can find somebody who's willing to do the work for free, which hasn't gone very well for us, or you can have it paid for by Medi-Cal. And so really just in the last few months, and we should have thought of this a lot earlier, because everybody who comes to us eventually can be eligible for and qualify for Medi-Cal. And then we have now, just in the last few months that we've been looking at this, already been able to forge relationships with specialists in trauma care who are eager to work with our folks, because we're why they went to school to learn what they did. And they want folks who have had the level of severity of trauma in their lives to help them overcome that. So we were talking about Oakland, and it turns out that there is a clinician whose practice is directly across the street from where our operation is, who we are now sending Medi-Cal qualified clients, we call them, in our program to her, and they absolutely love it. And so that's the path we're headed down with this, and we see opportunities in San Jose with some relationships.
I have a question. So I'm in your program. Whatever reason, I decided to come off the streets and I want to get sober. I'm ready to go. I'm doing good. Then I have a moment of weakness, and I relapse. I go get strung out. I come back hoping you won't catch me, but you guys run a test. Okay. And I'm like every addict, I've gotten really good at telling you how sorry I am, but I am truly sorry, 50% sorry and 50% planning my next way. What happens next?
Yeah. So what happens next is one of 2 things. The person can take a time out, as I used to say to my kids, and then come back. And the timeout is typically somewhere between 2 weeks and a month. And then they can come right back in. Or the other approach is, because CityTeam is blessed to have operations in multiple locations, we can refer to the other place. So if we had somebody in Oakland who that happened to, and we really felt that they were contrite and that it was going to be potentially harmful to them to make them have this 2 to 4 week period, then the guy in Oakland or gal will call up their peer down in San Jose. Can you take this person? Do you have a spot for them? This is the story. And typically, our folks have big hearts. So yes, we have a plan for that. We also have a plan for people who make it all the way through and relapse. They're invited back in. And that happens more frequently than I would like to admit, but
that's how you maintain, there's got to be consequences, but also the guy's mother died, and you know that, wow, he was on the right track. So we can move him to Oakland and get him right back on track. We don't want to leave him out even a week.
That's right.
Those options. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to hold questions at this point so you can get through the rest of your slides, because I know you had some more.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try and go through this fast. I'm really encouraged to see all the questions. So then this part about thriving and avoidance, which is called walking together in the model, to kind of talk about what we talked about to some degree already. We have active case managers who are great at what they do. In fact, most of our case managers are people who've actually come through the program themselves. So to your question, they have heard all of these things before. They have shared these things before. They cannot be persuaded to consider it any way other than what the test reveals. A big part of what we do, though, that I think is unique to programs like ours is the benefit that comes from being around peers. And so we have kind of a 4-phased approach. And we rely very heavily, not through like a requirement, really through organic means more for the people who are in the third and fourth phases of this, to invest in the lives of the people who are just coming into the program in phase 1 and 2 and say, I did it, you can do it too. And we have an internship program where people, after they've completed the program, can continue to stay with us and get free room and board and a small stipend, do 20 hours a week. But they too are role models and encouragement. And it enables us to really kind of leverage our paid staff a lot further when everybody is on the same page, providing similar messaging and encouragement to the people who are still struggling with this whole journey. We have one-on-one mentors that we invite in, and we call them spiritual mentors because ours is a faith-based program, and these people, oftentimes people do this, men and women, volunteer their time and learn about us through the churches that they're at. The way it works is you spend an hour a week with a person who's in our program, and you mainly sit and listen and give them the love and encouragement that most of our folks never got along the way. And it's a pretty sweet and special part of what we're able to do. They get sponsors from AA if they're in addiction. Family reunification is a big part of this. Imagine a person living on the street has probably burned all of their bridges. That's why they are on the street. And put yourself in their shoes. Where would you be if you did not have family members around you, not only when you need them, but just, to be in your life? So we help facilitate that, but a lot of that is just, again, organic. It's family members want, of course, to be reunited with their loved ones, but they've been burned many times before. So this is a journey. How is all this working? I think that it works really well. I think that for the people in our program who are committed to sticking it out, there's a lot of support, resource, tools that are necessary for them to make it through. But it is with the walking together. And I think we have our restorative community as well, but it's a little bit more maintained and organized through us. Okay, and then aftercare, which is called survivability and community support, is essential to all of this. So I mentioned earlier about how we're trying to go deeper into the way we approach mental health services treatment for people. It's the same with aftercare. We recognize that that the community that people benefited from in the 10 to 12 months that they're with us, if suddenly taken away and not replaced with some sort of community, or by allowing them to remain in our community, what typically happens is isolation, loneliness, and a tendency in many cases to revert back to how a person felt when they were out of community and didn't have support and love and encouragement around them. And it's expensive to continue to maintain that type of focus, I suppose, on folks for up to 2 years, but this is the approach that we're going to take. So in our last strategic plan, we acquired some properties to make this available to people, but we haven't really structured that part of our program as meaningfully as I think we need to. It's really been more of like what would be called at SLE, a sober living environment, where you stay with us. You're not allowed to use drugs or alcohol while you're here because it would be bad for the other people who are staying with us. But we're not really checking in with them, keeping tabs on what's going on inside and in other parts of their life, relationships, so that we could maybe learn earlier on if a person was starting to be in a place where they might stumble. So we're looking to do more. The internships I mentioned, that helps. Aftercare housing I mentioned. We, I think, had pretty good success recently finding local churches that will embrace our folks, which is a really sweet thing. And then we do have gatherings, alumni gatherings, where our folks come together and spend time and continue to be there for each other. So how is this working? It's pretty good. Our target is to maintain a 75% sobriety rate for the second year, up through the second year, which again does include a lot more independence than they had in the first year. And we're generally tracking on that, which, yeah, I think is pretty effective compared to national averages for these things. But it can be better, and it's very hard, and we don't want it to be hard for people. We want to make it as easy as we can.
Your goal is 75%. That's the metrics. Obviously, your goal is 75%. Obviously, your long-term goal is 100%, but you're pushing it and above average. What's your goal for like employment, or where are you at right now for how many people stay employed?
Yeah, so our primary metric on employment is living wage jobs. And similarly, we have a 75% goal for that. That's one that we're not doing as well as we are on sobriety. It's very, very hard. And the living wage target continues to move down the road where it gets harder and harder. And it's the reality is that based on the education level that most of our folks have had, the opportunities for them are going to be in the trades. And, many of the trade jobs, living wage is not a question. The electrician's making $100 an hour, plumber's 80, 90. But not everybody in our program wants to go down that path. And we have programs for men and women, and oftentimes women don't see themselves on job sites. And I don't blame them, and so then what is the trade equivalent that is available for women? We're still working through that and sorting it out. This has been very vexing for me because much of our operation is in Silicon Valley, and the highest paying jobs in the world are there. And there are jobs for people with more rudimentary skills and things like programming or something like that. So if anybody has any ideas on how we crack that code, I think we're missing out on something.
Well, there's a national trend, we're global trend really of reshoring. So there's theoretically lots of opportunities, but yes, Silicon Valley is going to, the trades are tough here because the cost of living is so high. So what would be your matrix overall? So a lot of people have to work multiple jobs, or they're just not making enough, or.
Yeah, I would say that this is a combination of cost of living is a combination primarily of how much you make and how much your housing cost is. And, other things cost more in the Bay Area too, but if a person can find affordable housing, then they could make it work. And so there's another metric that we're kind of haven't really formalized, but it's the percentage or numbers of people that we're able to help access subsidized housing. And we're getting more and more traction with that, but this is where I think that the way policies are set probably isn't helpful for our cause. And the policy is set in an understandable way, which is the person who has the greatest need is going to be the one who's going to get the first access to the affordable housing, subsidized. And what ends up happening is that in many cases, the need will be assessed based on where you are right before an opening exists. Well, guess what? They've stayed with us for 10 to 12 months. All the scoring systems that would present them at the top of the list when they were unhoused look very different for them. And so we're seeing very good results with some of the programs that we have for women with kids. We have a program in San Jose for women in crisis pregnancy, or those who have just recently delivered. They go to the top of the list. They'll stay with us, unfortunately, in many cases, too short of a period of time, because they get housing, and by all rights, they should go take the housing. So anyway, that's how we look at it.
So question for you, how do you connect with the communities of faith? I mean, do you guys have an intentional way to bring them in, to make them volunteers, to solicit support? How do you go out of your way to kind of pull those into the lives of the people that participate?
Yeah, to help them navigate the lists and get, that's something that has taken us a while to figure out. When I joined the organization, and I'm not going to claim responsibility for fixing this, but we were nowhere in this process, and we had some people figure it out, and it's become part of our case management approach. So yes, it's complicated, but once you figure it out, there are countywide systems that you have to get yourself started in on and make phone calls for. But I think part of it too is that once our folks get on lists and things like that, we want them to advocate for themselves. Part of this is a journey of self-sufficiency. Yes.
The lady in front of me was ahead of me, so I like to defer.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Mackenzie. Do you currently offer any extracurricular programming such as exercise classes or social activities?
STEM. Yeah. No, we don't. We tend not to focus on folks under 18. But you raise a really good point, because we've had in fact, we used to only take kids under the age of 5, so they wouldn't even be in the educational system. But we've done a major expansion. We acquired a 50-unit apartment complex. That program is open to women and kids, with kids of all ages, and school-age kids is the term I'm looking for. And we're really just getting underway with that. But it's a great opportunity for us to bring in resources and really help them consider other options, or where they may have gifts and what opportunities may be there. For the folks who are with us who are over 18, it's really rare and exceptional occasions where we'll find somebody who has the aptitude to actually succeed, in a STEM related field. And we do assessments of cognitive ability and stuff like that, and most just are not wired for that. All right, I like it a lot. Can you do it in San Jose? All right, cool. All right, now the question in the back.
Which I've somewhat forgotten, so that because I was interested in what was said. But let me see if I can refocus it.
We can come back to you, Peter. I have a question while you think about that. Okay, so you said that you have one facility that's focusing on women and school-age children.
Yes.
And how many units is that?
50.
50, and that's in San Jose.
Yes.
And then the one in Oakland, how many units?
We have a program for men that has about 100 beds in it for all kinds of different population groups, including the shelter that I mentioned before. And then we have a program in East Oakland that was a convalescent home that we were able to acquire at a very affordable price. And that houses about 24 or 5 women and kids.
Okay. And even the women and children population, they are also justice impacted, a lot of them, would you say? Because you said a lot of the people that you're working with are justice impacted, maybe coming from the judicial system.
Yeah, the women in our Oakland program, not so much. Yeah, I would say in some cases street homeless, and similar to our program for women in San Jose, domestic violence enters into it a lot.
And are they coming to you straight off the street? Like, are you having to transition them like right from like a fully unhoused situation and transition them into?
Sometimes, but with the domestic violence, it will oftentimes be, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so they would come from that residence to another. There are sometimes women who've been living in their car, sadly, sometimes with their kids, sadly, sometimes for years like that. So as was mentioned earlier, just all kinds of factors or situations a person can find themselves in.
And then do you have data to say like what percentage of those 250 people, more or less, right, move into permanent supportive housing? You said your goal was like a 75% success rate.
It's so I think I have unfortunately low / realistic expectations for what permanent supportive may look like for us, for our folks. And that's just the reality, of, as I was saying, the way that the system works, the point system. It doesn't mean we're not going to do everything in our power to make it happen. There's just a greater need for that, and more people trying to make that happen for themselves, then there are spots for it. So in the places where we can do it, we promote it. So then there is a reliance on this living wage job. That's why that becomes one of our pillars. One of the things that we've been very fortunate, though, is that this 50-unit apartment complex that we acquired, we went through a entitlement process where we got a streamlined approach from the city, county, and state to turn this into residential programming, but only by making concessions on how the beds would be allocated so that there would be affordable for extremely low income. So I would say that that's not permanent supportive, that's just supportive. Well, in that sense it is, but it's there's a limit to how much we can charge rent. So we have 17 units now that just by entitlement, we can't charge more than what would be a low enough rate that our folks can afford it. So that's a feature now that we can offer kind of under our own roof, for after a person's completed the program, they can continue to stay with us indefinitely. They just have to pay us $1,500 a month in rent, which even, with a minimum wage job, you can kind of make ends meet with that.
That is more or less my question, because I'm a affordable housing semi-cynic when I hear it's being built, because who's it affordable for? So I was wondering if you had a metric for what would be considered affordable housing for the people that are part of your program, which are the people who are coming off the streets.
Yeah, it's a good question. We kind of build it from the bottom up based on what we recognize they can afford, and we do it in a staged approach. So they come in and they stay with us for free. Then after they get a job, then they're required to pay a nominal program fee, it's called, which is like $450 a month. And then, after they continue to get more established and have their earning capacity grow a little bit more, then it would cap out only at this 15. Oh, I should say too, I mentioned the aftercare. We offer them housing after they've completed the program. That's $750. And so, but then fully, 2 years after they first came to our door, our hope is that they could get to $1,500 a month.
Okay. Yeah, and I was really not looking for the metric for affordability within your program, but if they were looking for outside housing in the community, what would be the estimate of what they would have to pay in rent?
Yeah, I think that the government entities or public officials have done a very good job of kind of pegging those levels. I would say I could be cynical about things too, but I just knowing the practical realities of these rents, when they say, you if you make $50,000 a year for a family of four, this is the most you could afford, and those are pretty realistic, I think, the way that would get assessed. And they have categories. As you probably know, they have extremely low income, they have low income, they have still below the poverty line or something like that, and then varying degrees of what affordability would still look like.
Hi. I wasn't clear on the answer to Paul's question earlier about the services you provide for workforce development.
Yeah.
Are those delivered on-site at the facilities, or do you have a separate job training center like a lot of workforce development providers?
Yeah, no, we have space set aside for them to go to. We call it the learning center. And, imagine that for the first 6 months that the folks are with us, they don't really have any responsibilities off-site. So there's a regular kind of curriculum, if you will, that includes a certain number of hours, days of the week, where they're in the learning center, completing their GED if they haven't done that. They're sitting in front of computers, and they're talking to the people, our caseworkers who did that, who don't do the rest of their case management. They only help them in their career journey. And we give them this test called a Burke assessment that kind of enables us and them to figure out what they like and are good at, what they're suited to do, I suppose. And then we get options in front of them, and then we build a plan. And oftentimes the plan will change, and again, they're having these one-on-one meetings with our folks. All right, what do you want to be when you grow up? And by the time they are finally expected to go out and work 6 months later, that will have changed 2 or 3 times. Many of the folks say, I want to do what you do. Can I come and work there like you do? And yeah, many are qualified and able to turn around and do that.
So thank you. That's a great answer. Is that learning center co-located where you have your beds, where you have the?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's, it's like a standard size classroom. So imagine if we've got 50 people in the program, half of them are out working already and half of them are there. So classroom space for 25 people with, little study carrels or something like that.
That's fantastic. I'm the coordinator of the Workforce Development DAO here, and really am excited about your presentation and would love to partner more with you. One thing we're hearing consistently lately is that one of the biggest pain points for the other job training providers is just finding enough employers to place them. Is
Yes.
that something you're finding as well?
Yeah, especially with the felony backgrounds. And I mentioned earlier, that ours is a bit of an integrated approach. This workforce development is a place where I do not believe that we have to be vertically integrated, as I used to say back in my business days, because this is a place where specialization, I think, can actually be more effective. We just haven't found the right providers. And as your question indicated, it's a hassle, to have to shuttle people over to some other location. So it has made sense for us to do it on site. Maybe folks can come to our site, but you're right. The key is the job placement. We don't have relationships with very many employers who are eager to take our people. Yes.
Hey, Glenn, thank you so much for your presentation and everything so far. I just had a statement and then a question.
Yes.
So it's fascinating. A lot of what you've been presenting actually crosses over with, as just mentioned, there's 5 DAOs and 4 specifically street teams, which is one,
Yes.
interim or temporary housing, mentorship, and workforce development. And so the question I have for a Web3 community really is a conversation I think past today on learnings and soundboardings, but also if there's things that as a community to support possibly CityTeam with. But my question is, in these areas, let's say me, Don, I come in, get a hot meal. Yeah. Is there a group of people that would walk the whole journey with me through that, or would there be the transition of, let's say, into a temporary space and then I get a mentor that begins to help me in the areas of workforce development? So I'm asking that because even with the DAOs here, there is the establishment and solidifying of each one, but what does the interconnectedness look like for what we're actually doing in the city? So do you have people that kind of work through that whole thing, or is there transitions between each one and certain people focus on specialized areas of mentorship, workforce development? What does that look like?
Yes. It's a great question, because I think that done properly, this can be the advantage to our program, right? It's when there are handoffs involved and government agencies involved, it can be very daunting. And so the key, though, is to do it properly. And the way we've chosen to do it is, I think, pretty sensible. So early on, come off the street, come into the program, you get a case manager. That case manager does not change unless there's a friction or conflict between the two, or it's just not working. And for the whole journey, they meet at least once a week for an hour, and they sit down, and our case managers have, we have software that helps us for them to do case management notes. So imagine you go to your doctor for a physical exam, and he or she is, asking you a bunch of questions and typing in information, and now they've got a profile of you. And so that's what we do. And it includes things like what's going on with the learning center and your job placement, and then how are you in the 12 steps is a big part of it. They've got to complete all the 12 AA steps to make it through. That spiritual mentor will introduce them, that case manager will introduce them to a spiritual mentor. So they coordinate all the things. And oftentimes, particularly with our programs for women and kids, it's complicated. So, imagine a mom with a newborn kid. The kid's got to be seen by a doctor. She's got her own things. So then all of that has to get logged in, So did you get that doctor's appointment for your kid, or your kid's got a cough, and all that gets tracked and monitored. And then even when they're not formally meeting, they're in the same location all day long. And so they can say, okay, how are you going to get over to the appointment? Remember, we talked about that. And so there's that level of safety net, accountability, whatever term you would want to call it, end to end in the program for the person.
I have a quick question and then my real question. Have I ever introduced you to Michael Brown and Michael's Transportation in Vallejo?
No.
Okay, they have a program training commercial drivers, and they're working with the reentry population, and they've overcome that barrier. They're because there's such a demand. They have like 100% employment rate because there's such a demand for commercial drivers. So I'll talk to you about that offline. So we're really big into collaboration, as you know about me. I heard recently that you had a meeting with some of the other, like Salvation Army.
Yeah.
Who are the other groups to talk
Teen
about
Challenge.
Teen Challenge and Victory Outreach,
Right.
right? Okay, to talk about collaborating better and having like a united intake system,
Yes.
so that you guys could refer better. We Geo are creating a thing called the not me myself, but the Ellis app. Some people here that would address that need, building it with YWAM and other groups here. I already kind of mentioned it to them. This would be a potential use case for them to help solve this. So I just wondered if you wanted to talk. I know it's in the early stages, but talk about that collaboration. And
Yeah, for sure. So when we had this meeting with similar providers, I think our primary objective is to do a better job, at least in Santa Clara County, of getting into the flow, I guess, of how the public entities and agencies, how that system works. So yes, we get a lot of referrals through the court and other means, but there's, in many cases, our programs are not given as an option, with people who end up, say, in the county jail, and then they'll be referred into the services or the systems that are offered by the county, but not the private providers so much, and so that's what we're hoping to kind of make some inroads with. There's a new a person who's very closely connected to us, who volunteers, a physician who volunteers a day of her time each week to work with the people in our program. She now has county-wide responsibilities along these lines. So that's our hope, is that she'll be an advocate and that we can sort of participate, in like ways with agencies that look different than us.
Are you familiar with Dignity Moves? You heard them at Innovate. You were there. Elizabeth Funk presented.
Yeah.
You were on the panel, right?
Yeah.
That she moderated.
Yeah, I love what they're doing. Yeah, I would like to spend more time with her. Yeah.
The latest news is they not only got their project approved, but the project they were talking about with Salvation Army in the last city hall, both of them got approved, and they weren't even expecting the Salvation Army. So that's good news, and they're very eager to partner more with the faith community, and they're going to be bringing almost 200 beds online in a short period of time.
All right.
So anyways, however I can help with that whole thing, collaborating together,
I
we want
appreciate
to
it.
help.
You had made an introduction, and I followed up, and they kind of dropped the ball on their end. So maybe we come back at that again. I know.
Nice. So I had a question for you. Do you find you're getting much support from supervisors at the county level? Do you get more help and assistance from city officials? Are you getting help in what areas, and who are some of the names you can kind of point to that really are helping you kind of get connected with the community at large?
Yeah, it's, I would say, not the greatest relationship that we've found ourselves now having, unfortunately, with elected officials in any of the jurisdictions. And I would have to speculate for why that is. But I would say that we have a pretty good relationship with the mayor of San Jose. That's gone pretty good so far. Yeah.
So there's you actually check a lot of box for supervisors, different supervisors in different counties. Would love to connect you with the folks that are trying to do what you're doing, but they just don't know you exist yet. I think that's important.
Part of all is that I think we don't fit neatly within kind of the modes of the systems that have been established to address these challenges. So what would they do with us? I think they could do great things with us, but they haven't really understood some of what this looks like, I guess, and what a kind of a light touch to the county approach this could be. You know, we do all this privately funded, and just drop them off at our door, and we'll do the best we can to help each individual succeed. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's crazy in this day and age of information that we still, like all these orgs, we don't know about each other. Maybe we can make a whole list. I'm sure there is something. Do you? Oh, okay, sorry, it's my first time here, you guys. So, do do you have any people in your program volunteering at certain organizations? Like, are they at that level? Is there an interest there?
Yeah, volunteers is kind of a never-ending quest for me, because we can only afford to pay for so many resources to be provided, and that's what volunteers offer. But it's even more than that. I mean, the statement that it makes to the people in our program to see somebody come in and commit a day or two a week of their life because they care and they're behind them, it's a pretty powerful statement. One of the things that I always thought would be a natural, and we haven't been able to get it, is I mentioned all these appointments that people have to go to. Oftentimes they have to take the bus. You know, why can't we find retired people who would want to come down and just, you know, spend 30 minutes taking a person to the appointment and wait there and bring them back, or to a job interview, which our people are going to all the time.
My question was mainly about the people in your program, like currently going through it. Are they required to do any volunteer hours?
Oh, yeah, I understand now. And because we would use different terminology.
Okay.
We would call that service. And what we find is that, and we didn't discover this, this is part of the whole 12-step tradition, is that it's about giving back, you know, and particularly when it wasn't long ago that you were in the same shoes as yourself, but then you have a renewed sense of purpose. It's like, instead of receiving this, now I'm the one, you know, who's on the other side of this. And the psychological and emotional benefits of that are pretty profound. That's, yeah, I mean, the main reason why we do that is to help them perceive themselves in a very different way.
So you do currently...
They're required, yeah.
Okay.
They're required. And the way it works is pretty straightforward, because I talked about the outreach that we have for unhoused community. Who's going to be serving those meals, doing the dishes, you know, all of that stuff. A lot of it are the people in our residential programs.
I ask because I am the volunteer coordinator for the Phoenix. We provide a container for community for anyone in recovery from substance use or practicing sobriety. And we thrive off of a volunteer model. So anyone can be a member. It's absolutely free. All of our programming, all we require is 48 hours of sobriety, and all of our volunteers run our programming. So we have everything from bowling, archery, yoga, CrossFit. We offer training for if anyone has a time commitment they would like to commit to us. We can help people get their CrossFit certification. We can help people get their yoga certification. So like when you were saying, especially women who don't know what they want to do in the workforce, my mind is like, I can get all these women to be yoga teachers. Yeah. Like, you know, and like you can do that from anywhere. You can do that from home, and your kid can be like, so yeah, we definitely need to talk.
I like it. Thanks.
So this has been amazing. I'll let Amory get the last question in here. But
Yes.
Hello. First, I want to compliment you on your website. I coordinate the Street Outreach DAO, and it's super robust. Like I could pick 6 to 10 different outreaches just straight from your site that I could join in a month. So bravo.
Thank you so much. We just launched that in October and
it's so
put a
nice.
lot into it. I will pass that on to the person who coordinated it. That's great.
And secondly, you make it very easy for people to volunteer for your organization. My friend lives next to your men's program, and we're both going to be cooking meals for both the men's and the women's program this month. So, so excited. My question is, if I come across people who need immediate shelter, what do I say to them? Do they have to go through an organization to get referred, or you said they show up?
Yeah. Which location?
Oh, sorry, Oakland.
Oakland, yeah. So we can help them out. unfortunately, there's a bit of a wait list now.
Makes sense.
But there is a limit to how long they can stay, because our hope really is that what we want to make those beds available for a person who could contemplate the opportunity to potentially come and stay with us. But yeah, I would love to get you that contact information, because as I said, I'm most proud of that shelter. They do an incredible job. It's a great
So
space.
good. And then quickly, San Francisco, same question. How do we get
Yeah.
people in?
Yeah. So it seems like I could be wrong, but there are a lot of shelter resources in the city. We do not offer shelter
okay,
today.
You guys don't have. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Well, this has been amazing. And
Can I do one more slide?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't realize.
So this, I think we've talked about most of this, but I thought it would be good just to kind of see laid out line by line the difference between our all-in-one approach, mostly all-in-one. We talked about places where it's not so much, and then one that's a little bit more tied to community or the other way of doing it. Ours is pretty cost-effective, I think. We tend to not have very many handoffs. We talked about the resources being on site, consistency in the message, because it's all kind of contained within our staff. One case manager with the same voice. There's a great sense of community because you're living around people who have gone through or are going through the same sorts of things that you are. We have a faith expression, and so for some people, that's really helpful in terms of how they consider a life transformation event. And then 2 full years of interim supportive housing to figure out how they want to come at it again. And then I would see some limitations in our approach or advantages of a community-based approach. It scales a lot better. You know, there's a limit to how we can do this, where specialized agencies can serve many people and have others alongside them in a system, if you will. Obviously, better access to government funding. I believe, and it's interesting to hear folks with different organizations, nonprofit organizations that you're from or connected to or know about that specialize in one thing, and that division of labor means if you're just doing that, chances are you're doing it really, really well. And, you know, we're doing a lot of things I still think pretty well. And then we talked about how you get into permanent supportive housing, and the traditional system, I'll call it, is set up where that is a desired outcome, or there's steps that lead up to that more naturally than it does with us. All right, now I'll stop.
Thank you
guys.
so much,
Thank you.
Glenn. Let's give him a round of applause.